Hi folks, in this video I'm going to be talking to you about minor key harmony in the Chaconne from the Bach Violin Partita No. 2 in D minor. And this piece is a beautiful one, a long one, and a complicated one, but the first 8 bars of it are pretty simple. It's just a series of chords, and those chords do a wonderful job of introducing you to how harmony works in minor keys generally. So what I've got here on the accordion is the D natural minor scale. And this scale is enough to generate most of the chords in the first 8 bars of the Chaconne, but not all of them. We're going to need a couple of other scales as well. The thing that makes minor key harmony a little bit more complicated than major key harmony in classical music is that in Western tradition there's only one major scale, but there are a bunch of minor scales. So yeah, just need a few more tools in your toolkit to understand what's going on. So here is the Chaconne, which I've loaded into Ableton Live. This is a performance of it by Victoria Malova, my favorite interpreter of this piece. And I've brought in a MIDI file of the piece and aligned the tempo of it with Malova's performance, and then I've split it up into chords. So I'm going to be talking through these chords one at a time, but first let's just listen to the piece. So those are the first two kind of phrases of the piece. They're both statements of this theme. The second one ends a little bit differently. And really all it is these chords with a couple of little melody notes thrown in on top. So I'm going to start with the first one. It's a D minor chord. The way you make a D minor chord from the D natural minor scale is you start on the first note, D, then you skip the second note, E, you play the third note, F, then you skip the fourth note, G, and play the fifth note, A. So this is called a D minor triad. A triad is just a note, chord rather, with 3 notes in it. Also called the 1 chord in D minor because it starts on the first note of the scale. All right, so far so simple. Second chord is a little more complicated. Should sound complicated to you, yeah, it's a pretty dissonant chord. And look at its name, it's D minor 7 flat 5. That's the jazz name for it. In classical music you would call it an E half diminished chord, but jazz musicians like to call it minor 7 flat 5. Those are both very scary names. The good news is producing this chord is actually pretty simple. So instead of starting on the first note of the scale, we're going to start on the second note of the scale, on E. We're going to skip F and go to G, and we're going to skip A and go to B flat. So now we've got this triad. This is an E diminished triad. I feel like that's the villain in like a silent movie or Dracula or something. Yeah, diminished chords are a real film score cliche for, anxiety and evil. There's another note on top of it, which we get by skipping the C and going up to D. All right, so the reason for the 2 confusing names for this chord. In classical music, notice that the interval between these 2 notes, it's a minor third. You go E, then 1, 2, 3 half steps. And then the next note, 1, 2, 3 half steps. If you then went up 3 half steps from B flat, then you would get D flat. And if you played all those notes together, you would get this E diminished chord, E fully diminished. But because this chord is asymmetrical, you got 4 half steps between B flat and D. It's not fully diminished, it's considered to only be half diminished. I find that name to be very confusing. I prefer the jazz name because jazz musicians look at this and say, oh, it's an E minor 7, it's an E minor 7 chord, but instead of the B natural we'd be expecting, there's this B flat. So it's like an E minor 7, but with a flat 5. Both of those, that's a lot of information, I know. The good news is, if you just think about the 2 chord, it's the minor scale, the minor chord that starts on 2. All right, so after E minor 7 flat 5, then we get this A7 chord, and we're going to put a pin in it and come back to it. Next we get another D minor chord. It sounds a little bit different from the first one. It's the same chord, but the notes are in a different order. So in the first one, the A was on top. In this one, the F is on top. There we go. So it's just a different inversion. It's the same 3 notes, but they're in a different order. And in chord theory, it doesn't matter what octave the notes are in. It just matters what pitch class they are. But the 2 inversions do sound quite different from each other qualitatively. Yeah, like this one is low. It's got the 5th on top. This has got the 3rd on top. Just a lot more kind of airy and open. All right, next we've got this B flat chord. And the way you make the B flat chord in the key of D is you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to B flat. And we're going to build, that's the 6th note in D natural minor, and we're going to build a chord off of it. So we're going to skip C and go up to D. Then we're going to skip E and go up to F. So there's the 6th chord in D minor. And the 6th chord sounds so good with the 1 chord in D minor. Hear that? They have 2 notes in common. They both have D and F in them. The B flat on top here, and the A on top here. Yeah, it's just that little half-step descent. Ooh, it's so sad. After the B flat, then we got G minor. G minor is the 4 chord. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you skip A and go to B flat, skip C and go to D. And G minor also sounds really good with D minor. Very similar effect to B flat. G minor and B flat are almost the same chord, actually. It's just that this one's got a G in it, and this one's got an F in it. They're pretty much interchangeable with each other. They both have that, that exact same kind of emotional quality relative to D minor. All right, so anyway, from there, back to D minor. Another A7, we're going to put a pin in that. Now in the second statement of the theme, it starts in D minor again. We have this 2 chord, this E minor 7 flat 5. Another A7, another D minor, another B flat, another E minor 7 flat 5. So this sounds different from this, but they're the same chord. It's just a different inversion. It's the same 4 notes, E, G, B flat, and D. But here the D is just higher. It's just in a different octave. So a good way to make your chord progressions more interesting is repeat the same chords, but change the inversions. Like take certain notes and move them up or down an octave. And yeah, this piece is a really good example of that. Okay, so far we've talked about all the chords except one, A7. To make A7, we're going to need a new scale. And the reason we're going to need a new scale is D natural minor is missing a really important note that we're going to want. So in classical music, the way you establish a key, or one of the ways you establish a key, is with what's called the leading tone. So here's the root of the key, the tonic, number 1 in the scale. And if you play the note that's a half a step below it, oops, there we go. What's the matter with me today? Where's my C? There it is. Oh, playing it flat. There we go. If you hear this note that's a half step below D, it fills you with this yearning. It's tense. It's just, oh my gosh, it's so tense. I really want to hear D. Oof, what a relief. So that's the idea in classical music. That's how you firmly establish that you're in a particular key. The problem is D natural minor does not have C sharp in it. It's outside the scale. You got C and you got D, but no C sharp. So if you want C sharp and D minor, you're going to need a new scale. And that scale is called harmonic minor. So check it out. Very similar to natural minor. The first 6 notes are exactly the same. But then the 7th note is the leading tone. And not only do you get that nice leading tone, but now you can make this chord built on scale degree 5. It's got C sharp in it. It's got E. That's called A7, A dominant 7, the dominant chord in the key of D minor. Classical music is all about the dominant chord resolving to the tonic chord, because you got that leading tone resolving up to the root. So anytime you see an A7 chord in this piece, you know that it's being generated by harmonic minor. In this case, the C sharp is down in the bottom of the chord, and then it resolves up a half step to the D in the bottom of this D minor chord. Same thing happens over here. Over here, it's a little bit different. Let's see, it's got the A on the bottom instead of the C sharp on the bottom. But again, the same 4 notes, A, E, C sharp, and G. It's over here. And then when it resolves to D minor, oof, it's a relief. Yeah, because that A minor is very tense, or A7 rather is very tense. You can make a 5 chord from natural minor. You can. A minor 7. It sounds fine, but it just doesn't have that drama that the dominant 7th does from harmonic minor. Problem with harmonic minor is it doesn't make for very nice melodies by classical music standards. Hear that? Classical musicians did not like this. In most Western scales, the interval between any 2 notes is either a whole step, 2 semitones, or a half step, 1 semitone. Whole step, half step. But then, in harmonic minor, it's a minor third, or an augmented second, however you want to think about it. That's a big jump. And in a melody, yeah, the canonical composers did not like that sound. There are parts of the world where they think that sounds just fine, namely the Middle East, the Arab world, and the parts of Europe that are most culturally influenced by the Middle East and the Arab world, namely Eastern Europe, Spain, also my Jewish ancestors who originate in the Middle East. Doesn't this sound Arabic? Yeah, that's called Hijaz in the Arab world. Yeah, my ancestors love this sound. Yeah, but in Western classical music, they don't like it. So for melodies with a leading tone in it, they wanted another minor scale, and that is the melodic minor scale. So same as harmonic minor, but now instead of this B flat from harmonic minor, you get this B natural. And if that sounds a lot like the major scale, it should. It's identical to the D major scale. So whenever you want to whenever you want to do that movement, then you often do it with melodic minor in classical music. And the name makes sense. Like, you use the melodic minor for melodies, harmonic minor, you use it for chords, and then natural minor you use for everything that isn't a dominant chord. So I know that's a lot of information. I hope it makes sense. The best way to internalize this stuff is to play with it. Play these 3 scales on the accordion, see how they sound, try generating chords from them. Listen to the Chaconne, it's a beauty. I'm going to be making some more videos about it. Yeah, trust your ears and have fun. Thanks for watching.